Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you. Featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today is a very interesting show because I'm doing an interview with Cheryl Powell, who is the corporate training and development expert of Learn to Engage. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about Cheryl. Cheryl Powell has been in the business of training and development for over 20 years, with multiple certifications in information technology and a master's degree in IT project management. She finds her joy each day helping corporations bring their employee training to life. I want to welcome Cheryl Powell to the Susan Brender Show.
Hello. How are you?
Well, Cheryl, talking to you is going to make me feel fine. And you know why? I love when people are so successful in that they give out so much information and education to our audience. So let's start from the beginning.
Excellent.
Let's put you in a situation for a moment where somebody walks through your door, okay? They walk through, and what's the first thing that happens? And take us through the whole scenario.
Well, usually they have a problem, that they want a solution to, and that's really what being an active listener is about, right, as business owners. So I would say 70% of the time they're going to explain the issues that are going on within their company or department. There's some maybe productivity issues. Maybe there's a lack of engagement with employees, or perhaps they're getting just way too many customer service calls that are not positive. So all of these things can be contributed to your employees not having the training that they need to do their job effectively. The other 30% are people that already know that, and so they know what they need, and they have a very specific topic for the training for their employees already in mind.
Yeah. Cheryl, has there been a change in the way corporations deal with their employees? Because, before, employees didn't have a lot to say because they didn't want to hear it. They used to say, come to my door, knock on my door, and I'll give you all that you need to know. But today?
Yeah, it's a little different now because now we actually implement a training needs analysis from the very beginning, and those same folks have a voice now. And so whether it's a questionnaire or a survey or an online, type of survey or poll, they're able to put in their ideas and suggestions about what they need to be successful.
Cheryl, you have a knack for seeing any training initiative through the eyes of the learner. Now, that's interesting because you can actually relate to what they're thinking and feeling about. So, again, I'm interested in knowing how you have that feeling and that understanding of what they need.
Well, one of the reasons that I have just that particular knack is because I've actually been on both sides of the fence. So, for example, I started out as a stand-up trainer. So within the classroom, I was able to interact with the students and find out exactly what they needed to learn, how they enjoyed learning it, and what was lacking in the course curriculum. So I have that insight, and then I got my master's online, so I was able to see the things that were lacking as a student with my professor online. And then I also, of course, have a technology background where I'm able to visually develop training that is going to really engage the learner in their cognitive thought processes, which was
we're going to talk
really the
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that was my thesis for my master's.
I hear
cognitive learning.
Pretty good learning going on there. Now, we started to talk about technology, or you did actually, and I want to know whether technology has changed the whole way things are dealt with. Do you feel that it's positive or negative?
Well, I can tell you this. There's a lot of this term being thrown out a lot, rapid development. I'm not always a big fan of it because sometimes very important phases in the learning and development process are skipped. So in that respect, I don't tend to agree sometimes. But as far as letting the employee learn wherever they're at, instead of forcing them to sit in a classroom for, 2 or 3 days, or even if it's just a one-day workshop, it's all day long, right?
Right.
So they're away from their desk and just work is piling up and it's not really efficient. So as far as the technology where the employees can look at it on their phone, they can go home and do it on their tablet, they can sit at their desk and do a module really quick on, their computer, that I love because it's just anywhere learning and it gives them what they need because if it's the right type of learning, they're going to be able to look up the exact topic that they need help with and then go through that training.
Now, this is, I don't mean to be a hypocrite because my podcast is online and certainly I hear what you're saying about the advantages of having technology, and here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
I have to ask you this. Don't you think sometimes it's necessary for some of your clients to look the mentor or whatever you want to call it, the corporate training person, in the eyes? You can. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the reason I say that is because when you look somebody in the eyes, you could tell what they're thinking to some degree.
Sure.
So what do you say about that?
And I think that is why a lot of the large or major corporations integrate a blended learning approach where they'll offer e-learning 1 week, and then the next week they'll be in the classroom doing some activities. So I agree with that. And, my organization, we create the facilitator and participant guides for the classroom as well as the e-learning modules. So we offer blended packaging. Another thing that they also do, if they don't have a classroom, if they don't have the space, they have webinars, like live, person webinars where it's a real person via video, and they're able to ask their questions and learn more.
I hear you.
So there are ways around it,
Yeah, because I know, there's many advantages to technology. Without it at this time in our history, if you will, it's just inevitable that it's going to keep on evolving, and you're going to be able to do so many things with it. Now, let's talk a little bit more about you and your content. How do you keep learners engaged? It's hard. They say that, for example, if you do a podcast like I do, they say it takes 7 minutes, and that's the most people listen. So how do you keep your learners engaged?
Yeah, that's such a great statistic because with e-learning, pretty much after the second sentence, they're zoning out. So it's just critical that the e-learning standards that are in place by some of the greats, out there for adult learning methodologies, as well as the theorists such as Dr. Ruth Clark, who has 1 million books on cognitive learning and how to keep them engaged, is followed. All those things need to be followed. So, for example, you don't put 10 paragraphs of text on the page, as well as having the 10 paragraphs read verbatim by the voice talent on the slide. That's not engaging. So the standard is 150 words or less. And you do not duplicate what the audio is saying on the slide. So the slide should just have brief, bullet points summarizing what the audio is saying. So that's one standard that we have out there. Another one is about imagery. There's a lot of learning out there that just has imagery on the slide that has nothing to do with the content. It has to be relevant.
Yes.
What else? There's another standard about how long the learner should be looking at a slide with the same image and the same text on the slide. Mm-hmm. How long should they go before you switch to something else?
Right.
So my guideline is normally 10 seconds. I don't go more than 10 seconds. I had a client I was working for. They were outsourcing some e-learning, and they had this module where the voice talent was speaking for 5 minutes.
Oh, gosh. And
the only thing on the slide was a picture of a hospital, and that was it. And I was baffled. I'm like, what exactly is supposed to be happening here? Like the learner is definitely not listening anymore after 30 seconds, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the commercials on TV or even on radio. Mm-hmm. There's an imagery that they always show you because somehow it's very subliminal, but they know, and they've tested it out, that people will pay attention to certain things, and particularly, caricatures and cartoons and things of that nature. Do you use any of that in your program?
I do. Actually, I don't actually use exact images, like if we're talking about for example, a supervisor leadership training, right? A lot of subliminal messages can be them climbing a mountain, reaching the top of the mountain with the person standing at the top of the mountain with their hands out, inspirational types of imagery that go along with the audio sometimes work better than just showing a supervisor with an employee sitting at a desk, in an office. Right?
Yeah.
So it is a lot. You can use a lot of that in e-learning as well.
One of the things that I hear and I see is that there are companies that, like Coca-Cola, I have to mention Coca-Cola because they're a great one, that represents the whole idea of something that people relate to really well, and they never forget it. See, this is the thing. Yeah. They never forget it.
Yeah.
If you can do something like that for e-learning, what would it be? I mean, would it be an Apple, like Apple? I mean, you don't forget Apple, and you don't forget McDonald's. So, create for us.
And that's what, I guess that's the challenge with every course that I develop is, how am I going to grab them from the very beginning and have them remember what they're learning? And that's why I do so much interactivity, and I break the learning into very, very small chunks, 10 minutes at the most for a module, on a module topic. Every 3 slides, they're doing some type of activity or answering a question or looking something up on a news site or reading an article related to the learning and typing up their, summation of what they think the article is supposed to mean. Just all those different types of things it's so important that the learning is attention grabbing from the very beginning. Yeah. And it's just because we want that commercial effect. Sure. We want them to remember, and we also want it broken into smaller pieces by topic because we want them to be able to pick and choose.
I hear you.
What they need to learn because it's about their being successful in their job role.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need them to be able to pick, okay, you know what, this is what I need help with.
That's right. Now, do you do your learning courses with a whole group of people? Is it in a classroom? Where do you do it?
Actually, I don't do the live training, so I just develop the content. So if you're running a workshop or a seminar or classroom training and you have a site, a facility at your company, then I would develop the facilitator and participant guides and the workbooks and whatever else, the PowerPoint, whatever you need. I would develop those materials. And then if you want, just the e-learning, then I would develop the e-learning module, and it would include everything you need from beginning to end, videos, graphics, games.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Cheryl, you work with companies all over the country, all over the world, I suppose, but wouldn't it be an advantage if we had programs like yours in high schools or in colleges?
Yeah, I think they're moving in that direction. I do believe that a lot of the elementary schools that I used to work with back when I was in Jersey were already 10 years ago moving in that direction for the students. I don't see a lot of it in universities. I've worked as a consultant for several colleges and universities, and right now they're just converting their classroom materials to online learning, but it's almost like they're just doing a copy-paste. It's not really a module with a lot of interactivity in it. It's still a lot of online research and writing papers. So we're not quite there yet,
right?
In my opinion, with higher learning. And I've worked with several of the big companies, including Pearson.
So what?
And they're not there yet.
Well, what do you attribute that to? I mean, people who get the opportunity to have special learning, they have to appreciate it because it gives them power. It gives them power.
Yeah.
That's what I say. So I want to know.
I agree.
Right? And so what is your...
I totally agree. I see sales reps. I develop training for sales reps when they're out in the field. They go through certain training on their phone. And so it's a lot of mobile learning that they do. And it's mostly just, maybe one sentence of text and an image, but it's teaching them something that they need before they go in and see the client. And I thought to myself, why can't college learners, have that type of interactivity? Yeah. Where they can just flip on their tablet or phone and go through some type of training. Why does everything have to be so structured? Write a paper about this or watch a video about this. I don't know why we're not at that next level. It might have something to do with the university and college platforms, because their platforms are totally different from a corporation. Like Moodle, Blackboard, like their platform where the students log in to learn it's completely different. So it's not like, I need to access this module and I just click on the title and go through it. It's not like that. It's mostly text. So they're really just scrolling through pages of text.
Okay.
And referencing, textbook page numbers.
That's right. Now, Cheryl, as you talk about what they're doing right now, all these corporations and how they accomplish what they wish to accomplish, don't you feel that in the future it's going to be completely different because, we learn from what we learn, and you learn and and you understand what good learning is, but you too must be moving on because that's the way it goes, and we all evolve in many ways. So what do you say to that?
Well, it actually has shifted a lot, and for the better in respect to me, because I write classroom materials as well as develop e-learning modules, so I kind of have the best of both worlds either way it goes. But for the most part, over the past decade, most companies do not send their employees all across the United States to go to these, training sessions.
Right.
They don't do that anymore. It's too much travel cost, and it's pulling the employee away from their, job duties for too long. And so the shift has been towards e-learning, and I think it's continuing to shift. But we really need to, again, do more focus on the writing part of it, which is the instructional design part of it, where we really ask the question, what are your goals for this training? What do they really need to learn? What engages them? How can we break this down? These are things that have to do with adult learning methodologies and the writing part of it.
Right.
And that's a key part of training and development. And there's a lot of instructional designers out there that don't know that piece. And they only have the development part of it. And I feel like I kind of have the best of both worlds, having that writing skill as well as the IT part, the development part.
Yeah. I always give my guests the last word. You've been talking all about e-learning and the advantages for all kinds of people who are looking to change their life in many ways in their work life. So if you have a chance to say something that you think is very important, what would it be?
I would probably mention the new website and our new division. We have these mini Christian modules. They're 10 to 15 minutes long, and they're called the God's Way series. And we have 4 or 5, I think we have 4 now, that are up in the course library that happen to be doing very well. It was a chance that I took, because it's a touchy topic, but it's really a big success.
Yeah.
So that's something that, I just would love to just point out. It's just uplifting, and it involves a whole lot of interactivity, even though it's only 10 to 15 minutes. And it's exciting for me.
I hear you. Now, there is one question that I haven't asked you, and I really need to ask you since you just mentioned various things. And so how have you managed to incorporate your faith? You talked about faith. You talked about believing in something. How do you manage to incorporate it into your business?
Well, that was the whole reason for the God's Way series, is to incorporate my faith into my business, because without my faith, I wouldn't be where I am today. So that was something that was difficult for me, because I had always said, I don't want to touch on anything sensitive. Maybe I shouldn't do that. And it was always a challenge for me. And then one day I just had an epiphany, and God said, I need you to do this.
Right. Wow.
And he said, I need you to stop worrying about what people think, and I need you to do that. Yeah. And I'm so glad I did. So we just have tons of people that are downloading the courses, and I'm really, really excited.
Well, my guest today has been Cheryl Powell, who is a training and development expert. She finds her joy each day in helping corporations bring their employee training to life. She's a marvelous person. She's got a lot of faith, and she's going to be very successful. I want everybody to look up. And how do they find you, Cheryl?
Oh, they can go to learn engage.info. Make sure you do .info at the end.
Okay. Well, she has a knack for seeing any training initiative through the eyes of the learner, and who else out there is anything but a learner? So get in touch with her. I think she has a lot to offer you, and you're going to be delighted when you find out what it is. So thank you, Cheryl, for being on the Susan Brender Show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.